Scripture reading for today takes us through the common lectionary, and it's our last visit with the letter to the Hebrews. This very unique writing of the Christian Scriptures that is the only place that we see Jesus Christ described as the new high priest of the people. Furthermore, the former priests were many in number, because they were prevented by death from continuing in office. But Jesus Christ holds his priesthood permanently because he continues forever. Consequently, he is able for all time to save those who approach God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them and to lift them up. Today, I guess I will begin with a couple of announcements. Good thanks to a donor for providing me with a new sound pack that I don't have to worry about. So we give thanks for the cordless system that served our church back to 2004. Can you believe it? And now we start off with a fresh new one. So we are grateful for that generous gift. We also did some fine-tuning, including to your keyboard, putting a new cable onto it. So hopefully we've eliminated a little bit of our static struggle of recent weeks. And also wanted to announce tomorrow evening our meeting on the class of Theosophy will be an introduction for those interested in that work. Should we have enough to continue that as an ongoing study course, the group can decide what time works for them best. It does not have to be the last Monday of the month. So come join us tomorrow evening at 7 if you're interested in what that's all about. Today, as I did last week, but in a different manner, I wanted to approach the idea of how do we approach the world? Our title here of the lesson speaks to us of fundamentals of which we are all familiar. We know that we live in a world of social conventions or agreements. In business, we know that word. In business, we expect to turn a profit or it's not good business. It won't last. Through trade or barter or exchange, we are expecting fairness and equal trade. However, in what we call ministry or charity or service to others, it is altruism or selflessness that sets the standard. In other words, we offer help as a free gift or a true act of love, which serves someone or something beyond our own self-interests. So our question becomes, in our world today, can we find these three human activities in a healthy balance? Can we find them in a healthy balance? Well, switching gears, what about the royals? What about the royals? And our daily word for today is celebration. I remember 30 years ago talking to my parents. I lived far away. And they were telling me about what it was to go to the World Series game and to see Kansas City explode in excitement in 1985, 30 years ago. So, maybe history will repeat itself. But the victory and their progress to the World Series either pleases us or displeases us depending on the team we choose to support. In other words, one's fan's celebration is another fan's what? disappointment. A significant thinker, most significant thinker of the modern age, Johann von Goethe, wrote these words, and it teaches us about our initial relationship with life. As soon as we become aware of the objects around us, we start to consider them in relationship to ourselves. And rightly so, because our fate depends entirely on whether they please or displease, attract or repel, help or harm us. This very natural way of looking at and assessing things appears to be as easy as it is necessary, yet it can expose us to thousands of errors that often put us to shame or make our lives miserable. We undertake a much harder task when, in our keen desire for knowledge, we strive to observe natural objects in and for themselves, and in their relationship to one another. For we soon feel the lack of the standard of liking and disliking, of attraction and repulsion, of usefulness and harmfulness. That came to our aid when we were considering objects strictly in relationship to our human selves. We are forced to renounce this standard totally, and, as quasi-divine beings, to seek out and examine what is, and not what pleases us. From a business perspective, as we approach life, we want to profit or be benefited from what we experience. This sole approach to life brings us an affirmation or clarity of our sympathies and antipathies, our likes and our dislikes. It's the activity of our feeling life, what we feel connected to. And this is a natural approach that we can take to life. I believe we all do. But if we turn the page, we might remember from the early 1970s a well-known comedian, Flip Wilson, whose most famous character, Geraldine, was forever saying, "What you see is what you get." Millions upon millions of people heard this. And for millions, this is their primary approach to life. What you see is what you get. What you see is what there is. In other words, judging from what we see out here in the world and saying, well, that is the truth. The church does this in an easy way. I've often commented on a friend of mine in college that was very curious about the unity way of thinking, the unity way of life. And she asked me several questions. And I spoke to her of, well, it's a process of onward development of the individual. And in great mystery, she stopped and said, wouldn't it just be easier if unity just told you what to think? In other words, she was taking Geraldine's approach. Just tell me. Just tell me what reality is and I'll believe it. So this approach is like bartering or trade, a free exchange. Give me an idea and I'll take it on. But we have another way, another approach, and we might call this ministry, I being clergy, but there are other words for it out in our communities. Charitable work, service to others, or perhaps a more contemporary term, but a very insightful one, is selfless service. Service that's given to the world without oneself as the focus. It's not an idea of you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. But it's an idea of I value you, or I value a particular work in my community, and I'm willing to give and to support that even though I have no expectation of my personal gain. Yes, we all know in truth that we cannot give without receiving, but that's another lesson. Today I wanted us to look at these three ways that we can approach the world, and I'm using this metaphor of business, trade, charity. What gives? What truly gives to us? Well, this is not to make any of these forms or approaches to life better than another. They're simply ways of being in the world. And there's nothing wrong with business as an activity to make a reasonable profit. Doesn't it make the world go around, as they say? It's a financial energy, and this is good. But in my model, this business is all about what benefits me. As Johann von Goethe said, that which pleases or displeases you. Through that process, we can become clear, as we say in Unity, the consciousness, the activity that we want to be around, as opposed to the activity that we find negative, destructive, harmful. So we learn through this process to choose where we're going to spend what? Our time, where we're going to participate, what we're going to support. But it's all done in relationship to ourselves. Again, I underline, I am not condemning that. That is an approach. It's like business in our world. Exchange, trade, bargain. Bob, I'll give you this for that. It's kind of like our place in the world where we use our physical senses and look out there and consider what we see, and then we take it inward and we have thoughts and feelings about it. It's our inner life. Again, do you understand? It's our inner life. It's still about us as an individual. So now we move to that third step, the step of selfless service. Now I am choosing, exercising my will, not willpower, my will, which is my ability to choose my actions. This is one of our greatest gifts. We've got two great gifts. One, our attention, what we pay attention to, and secondly, what we choose to do, our activity of will. So if we choose to give that to support a work here in the world without making our primary concern, what? Our own benefit, that is a true act of love. Many of us struggle with what that little four-letter word means. But at least consider that love is this significant power of doing something for the benefit of another or for the world at large without expectation of return. It's a free gift. So what does it do? This is the first activity that was not based in our own concern. And so it brings us something new. For what we love, we begin to understand. What we do in freedom, for the benefit of a greater good than our own, we begin to understand the world in a greater way. Now, as I said at the beginning of our lesson, our premise was, how might we find balance between these three activities? How can we find balance? Well, any true teaching, whether it's unity or any teaching of spirituality, is generally helping people find balance in the aspects of their life. We use different words. We may speak of finding a balance between our outer activity in the world, all that we do, and our inner life of prayer, our inner life of silence. But the balance is a way of expressing well-being. I might ask a friend of mine in the room that will remain nameless, but we all seek to find balance in our life in terms of health, because one day we might notice that we ate with great ferocity and we ate great abundance. And then the next day we said, well, I need to balance that. I really overdid it this weekend and I need to find balance in my diet, or there are consequences. So finding balance in this approach to life. One, it is perfectly good to approach life in this business sense of how does this situation profit me? As Goethe said, that's a natural approach to life. It's part of the human game or human story of how we work. There's the older idea of barter and exchange. And it's more like, what do I see out here in the world through my senses? What does it mean to me? What meaning do I find in it? And then finally, this selfless service. What am I willing to support beyond myself for a greater good? We might even say charitable giving. That's how it's often expressed at the end of the year. Many organizations, don't they, ask us for charitable donations to support a good, important work in the world. And you may get a thank you letter, but you're not going to get a product in return. It's your free will, your free choice to support that. So let's take these three ideas now for a time in the silence to work with them inwardly. We've worked with them outwardly and talk, so to speak. And now we can turn to the silence of meditation and see what is revealed to us. So I invite you to allow your attention to turn to the very center of your being, your soul, your heart, a place of quiet. And today I encourage you to imagine or create a picture within your mind's eye of a business meeting going on within your soul right now. Call to mind a current circumstance in your life. What profit can you find in it? Does that situation or circumstance please you, attract you, or does it repel you? Does your soul say, this is something to have no part in? And as you rest for a moment in the silence, allow this natural feeling life of your soul, its likes and its dislikes, to teach you about what is best for you as you rest in the silence. We give thanks for our feeling life, which gives us an inner urge of what business is good for us and what business or activity is harmful to our well-being. And now call the power of your imagination into activity again. As you imagine or visualize that you are about to make a deal, a trade with someone. You see the exchange being offered. What does it mean to you? Are you interested? Is what you see really what is being offered? Is there fairness here? Now allow this wonderful thinking life within you, your ability to discern truth, fairness, ideals, within the information your physical senses give you. Now as you rest in silence, let this thinking guide within you clarify what is of value in this given circumstance of your life, in this specific encounter. And now we give thanks for this divinely created thinking life, this capacity of our soul that allows us to discern, to clarify what is good and true in our outer world, in the outer circumstances of our life. And once again, call this power of imagination into activity. And imagine a situation in which you are choosing to come to the aid of another with no thought of your own benefit, perhaps with no thought of your own safety. You're just led by this sense of what is right to do. This impulse calling you forward, calling you into activity, is the impulse of your free will, your ability to choose. It is selfless service. that gives itself to what is necessary, what is good, what is of benefit to the world, rather than what is profitable to your own life. We may call it the activity of love. It works through our free choice to support, encourage, nurture something greater than the concerns of our own life. This is the activity that gives, in the sense that it brings something new and transformative into your soul life. And as we rest in the silence, allow your willing life, your capacity to choose, to give selflessly. Allow this inner capacity to teach you in the silence, to open your awareness as we rest in the silence. And as we bring this time of contemplation to a close, I invite you to hold on to the key concept of balance. The activity of our feeling life, our thinking life, our willing life, we all practice to different degrees. We can each consider this theme of balance. And allow that inner silent voice, that presence of the divine within us, to continually guide us in times of reflection as how we might greater balance these qualities of soul for our good and truly for the good of our communities, the entire human family. For a soul that is balanced in its inner activity brings joy into every environment, brings goodwill into every community, and maintains a light of hope for the world. So the word of this meditation is balance. And gently we allow our attention now to return to this room in which we are seated. And as we make this transition between our inner life and our outer activity, it is always good to give thanks, knowing that truth has done its blessing, healing, prospering power within our time of prayer. So for your blessing and your aid, we say, thanks be to our God. Amen.